So I have to make sure that I take the right form of THC. If I take a little too stimulating, then I'm not sleeping, paradoxically, right? So sometimes people will have a paradoxic reaction, and you have to anticipate some of this. And again, there has to be someone or something, it doesn't have to be a human, that will have to coach patient through this.
I'm so glad that you're talking about that, because I think that sometimes can scare people away from this because it's so nuanced like that, right? Like there's so many applications and there's all these conditions, and you kind of match the right dosage with the right cannabinoids to the right conditions and kind of put it all together. And one challenge that patients face is the right dosage and the right method of administration. How important do you think it is for patients to have the freedom to titrate their cannabis use under the guidance of a physician? How important do you feel like it is in this process?
Oh, it's critical. I mean, I think some coaching, whether the coaching is personal coaching or AI or a program, it probably doesn't matter all that much. I think we're gonna have all these variations, but I think it's the most important. It's too expensive for us to create a system where the experts, physicians or expert prescriber would basically spend an hour a week with the patient to try to keep optimizing the protocol. We really need to have a different system. We have to create this. It doesn't exist. You look around all other types of medications. Think of it this way, like it's closer to what we call a holistic medicine, or closer to what we would be calling a naturopathy, when patients are often have to spend a lot of time with each practitioner because they you have to continuously modify the treatment, because there's so subtle changes that lead to a little bit of changes, and you have to keep on trying to optimize the protocol until you get to the best place. It's like the people would work with naturopath, for example, when they would have so many different fine intricacies in titrations of vitamins, botanicals, and often the work has to be quite, we like it to call low tech, high touch, right? You have a lot of the time you have to spend with the patient. I think the cannabis is very similar, and you're right. You're 100% right. I think because of that, a lot of people feel like, oh, I can't learn this. I can't. It's just too much for me to get this. And if you get through that, if you get over that, then you realize, yeah, there's a lot of learning, but once you get grasp on the basic concepts and on a basic, you start figuring out, okay, well, like for me, I don't do well with a lot of CBD. I do horrible with it. I get kind of depressed and kind of down. So in fact, I think a lot of people get kind of down with too much CBD. So, for me, like I need some acidic forms. They do a whole lot better for me. So CBDA, CBGA. And then, if I do THC in the evening, because it is like alcohol for me, 100%, right? So I have to make sure that I take the right form of THC. If I take a little too stimulating, then I'm not sleeping, paradoxically, right? So sometimes people will have a paradoxic reaction, and you have to anticipate some of this. And again, there has to be someone or something, it doesn't have to be a human, that will have to coach patient through this. And they have to be able to reach out and say, hey, I just started this and this is what's happening. What does that mean? Right now, unfortunately, if the patient does not have an access to a decent cannabis clinician of some sort, they're going to go to dispensaries. And some of the people in dispensaries are amazing, 10 times better than me. And some are like really just like out of high school and they shouldn't be there. It's a business, right? So the business will employ whoever they feel for business is appropriate. So it's not necessarily always the best person for the patient. So definitely we need a system. We need a better system of coaching. We need a better IT system and technology systems that are allowing patients to get some of this coaching automated. And I do think that a lot of this can and should be automated, and probably not necessarily centralized, because again, there are going to be variability between different locations and different products and different growers that has to be taken into account.
I agree. And what kind of fills a lot of that gap is, on our platform. So Nick Gerley's the CEO of My Florida Green, and also he created the Doc app. He's definitely a tech person, and the Doc app really aims to kind of bridge the gap between the patient, the data, the physician, and even regulatory agencies should they want to
Hmm.
be involved, they could. And I really believe that this tool really helps a lot. We have a conditions database, we have a pharmaceuticals database where you can type in your condition and it'll help you match some of the best known cannabinoids for that condition. And then there's a patient diary which you can go in and log the specifics of the product that you're taking. And we often recommend people to really annotate your dosage. And then something that I really think is important for people too is we don't listen to ourselves enough from a health standpoint. I think we need to
Right.
listen to our body and then record that data. And we always tell people, like, the more that you engage with that process, the better results you're going to get. And that is almost always the case. And believe it or not, I'm one of them. I'm one of them myself. And it's just been life changing for me personally. So you believe that that could be things like that should be implemented in a self titration model?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the most practical. I mean, in reality, we're not going to have enough trained providers for a long time, right? So to fill that gap, at least for the next, I don't know, 5, 10 years, we're going to have tools like yours to say, look, you're going to put some safety guidelines, you're going to put some efficacy guidelines in there, and it will be sort of yes, it should be overseen by someone so that patient always have a way to talk to a human. But in reality, it's not going to be realistic for everybody to go to the human. People who have excessive means will always probably going to find someone. But another problem is this whole topic is out of pocket, right? So nothing is covered, and often patients come into this field of cannabinoid medicine out of desperation. Many of them are on a very limited income, and they struggling, and so for them to go and spend a few $100s on each visit to a naturopath or to a good holistic provider is not going to be an option. So now what? Like, where are they going to go? I mean, if they're just going to get a card from their primary care doctor is not going to give them any reasonable advice. They like it to get a card at no cost. And then what, right? So this can be automated at the fraction of the cost. I mean, I don't think it should be free, just simply because all of this costs money and everything has its own cost, but it can be way cheaper than the current healthcare system. And at the end of the day, here's the funny thing: we know it will save tremendous amount of money for the healthcare budget, like tremendous. We're talking about, there's been an experiment done where somebody in 2018, I think, this published in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association. They took entire Medicare data across the country and they looked at the prescription opioids. And they did the following: they looked at what happened after cannabis was approved. And there was $1 million prescriptions per day drop in some states per day. So imagine that somebody, if you drop amount of opioids, even by, I don't know, let's just say 1 million tablets per day, you know how much the typical cost of opioid per month? Like, if you're looking at something a bit more expensive than just plain morphine, we're looking at $200-300 a month. Now multiply that by 1 million. So, it's a safe cost to society, because if you look at, I have some of my Medicaid patients, and I do take Medicaid at the university. Some of my Medicaid patients are using $20-30 of cannabis a month with tinctures, and sometimes that's all they spending. And that's less than copay of many medications.